They thought humanity was just a newcomer to the stars. But when the silence devoured thousands of worlds, when the ancient races fell to their knees in despair, it was mankind, born of a death world, who stood. They did not fight for glory. They fought because someone cried out. And now, a mind without a name is awakening. It does not come to destroy, but to ask humanity one question: is light real? The signal from Virella. Space is always quiet until everything begins to fall apart. From the observation deck of the UEF Thunderheart, Commander Eli Vance stood still, his gaze locked on the star-streaked canvas beyond the thick armored glass. Soft trails of cosmic light glided silently past the window, reflecting off the interior lights of the command bridge, cool blue, almost tranquil. Beneath it all, the gentle hum of the antimatter drive echoed like a solemn lullaby sung by machines in solitude. The year was 2187. Humanity was no longer a species shackled to the breathable skies of Earth. They had reached far beyond the solar system, carving settlements in Alpha Centauri, Vega, and even on the outer fringes of the Corellis arm regions so distant that light took millennia to arrive. Humanity was no longer dreaming of stars, they were building among them. And yet, that fragile peace wasn't built to last. "Commander," a voice crackled from the communications bay behind him. "We're picking up something strange." Eli turned. Sergeant Jenna Price, communications officer, frowned intensely, her eyes fixed on the controls in front of her. Her fingers moved rapidly across the holographic interface as streams of data pulsed beneath her fingertips. "What kind of strange?" Eli asked, stepping closer, placing one steady hand on the console's edge. "It's not encoded in any standard frequency," Jenna replied. "Doesn't match anything in the Galactic Council's language archives either, but it's looping." She tapped a final command. The bridge, filled with a low, eerie tone, fragmented, unnatural. It wasn't quite music, it wasn't quite speech. It was like the broken sigh of something dying. Then one by one, the ship's linguistic AI processed the fragments, slowly translating them into words that appeared on screen. "They devour everything. We are falling apart. If anyone can hear this, please. Virella, we beg for help." The entire control room went silent. Eli ran a thumb across the scar on his jaw, a faint reminder from his early days serving in the Martian frontier campaigns. But it wasn't the memory that disturbed him. It was the phrase, "devour everything." It rang too close to the ghost reports he'd encountered, years agofragmented transmissions from deep space research outposts, warning of dark patches that consumed light itself, reports dismissed as errors. Hysteria, or worse, fabrication. "Transmit the full signal to Earth Strategic Command," Eli ordered firmly. "Request immediate threat assessment and emergency clearance for deep space investigation." 3 days later, the Earth Space Command convened virtually. In the center of the military holochamber, 6 ship captains appeared as shimmering avatars, surrounding the projected image of Admiral Celeste Heron, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Fleet. She stood tall among the translucent projections, arms behind her back, eyes steeled by war and politics. Floating between them, a rotating holographic star map illuminated the room. In its heart glowed the signal's point of origin. Virella remote, largely uncharted world near the boundary of the Corellis expanse. It was little more than a name and a coordinate in their archives. "We've confirmed the authenticity of the distress signal," Heron said. "It is not a hoax, and it does not match any known language, culture, or species within the jurisdiction of the Galactic Council." She paused, letting the silence speak before delivering the next blow. "We forwarded the data to the Council, and they responded." Everyone turned toward her projection. "They refused the request to investigate?" one captain asked, voice dripping with bitter irony. "Correct," Heron replied without blinking. Their advisory board unanimously classified the signal as a potential predatory lure. They believe it could be a trape or worse, a non-sentient entity broadcasting instinctively to draw attention. Eli stepped forward, voice calm but resolute. "And if it's human?" he asked. "If there's even the slightest chance that someone out there is like us, cut off, desperate, alone, we owe them more than silence. We can't let fear of the unknown become a policy of indifference." "I told them the same," Heron said quietly. "But they forget we survive because we don't look away. We weren't born on serene planets with gentle weather and soft gravity. We evolved in fire, in struggle. Our resilience is our inheritance." She turned to him now, expression sharp with meaning. "Commander Vance, Thunderheart holds the highest first contact success rate in the fleet. Your crew has survived Omega-class threats and navigated Black Zone diplomacy without a single casualty. This mission belongs to you." Eli nodded. "Understood." "You'll lead Relief Fleet 7, Heron continued. "The Thunderheart, UEF Dauntless, UF Solaris, UF Horizon, and UEF Phoenix. Your objective is threefold: investigate the signal, offer relief if warranted, and most importantly, gather intelligence on a possible entity referred to only as the Silence." Preparation was swift, meticulous, and exhausting. The Thunderheart was retrofitted with heavy-duty counter-entropy weapons and reinforced signal shielding. Long-range drones were recalibrated to scan for anomalies in gravitational curvature and EM interference. The mission wasn't just exploration, it was a potential confrontation with something ancient and unknown. Eli handpicked the task force personnel. In addition to soldiers and tacticians, he requested a core team of specialists, trauma medics, deep code linguists, data archaeologists, but above all, Dr. Rowan Blake, a neuropsychobiological engineer renowned for his controversial research into synthetic hive consciousness. Rumors had already begun to circulate, whispers of a force that consumed not just matter, but information, thought, memory, something that fed on presence. Eli wasn't willing to go in blind. The night before departure, sleep evaded him. He wandered the quiet halls of the Thunderheart until he found himself in the glass-domed observatory. Above him, stars burned like frozen fires in a black ocean. Despite their brilliance, the vastness felt cold, empty. "You're not the only one pacing tonight," came a soft voice behind him. Dr. Morgan Kao, a behavioral biologist and one of his oldest confidants, approached with a cup of coffee in hand. She wore her lab coat open over a flight jumpsuit, and her gaze calm, clear, met his with quiet empathy. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "We're going into the dark without a map," Eli said. "No guarantees, no answers, only a dying voice and a name no one remembers." Morgan nodded slowly. "That's what makes us different from the Council," she said. "They were born in harmony. We were born in chaos." She took a sip from her cup, then turned her eyes to the stars outside. "Humanity's recklessness is often mistaken for arrogance," she continued. "But it's not. It's courage. The kind that steps into silence not to conquer it, but to pull someone out of it." Eli said nothing, but the weight in his chest eased slightly. He looked at her, then back at the stars. "Tomorrow," he said, "we rewrite the story." At sunrise, Relief Fleet 7 launched from orbit. 5 vast ships broke the atmospheric threshold like titans. The Thunderheart took the lead, its engines glowing white-blue as they charged the Alcubierre warp drives. Space itself distorted as the fleet crossed the boundary of light speed, plunging into the folds of faster-than-light travel. In that final moment, just before the leap across stars began, Eli stood on the bridge and transmitted a message, one that echoed through deep space, carrying hope with it. "This is Commander Eli Vance of the United Earth Fleet. We have received your signal. We are en route. Hold strong. You are not alone." Deathworlders arrive. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the United Earth Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel into the cold void of the Virella Spur. Out here, The stars hung sparse and distant, shrouded by a hazy darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. The edge of visibility felt like a breath held too long, stretched taut across gravity-warped space. Some distant force unnatural and ancient was, distorting reality, pulling at the stars and bending them into blurred reflections, as though the universe itself were wheezing in the dark. "We've reached the Virella system," reported Lieutenant Orion Hale from the helm. His voice was calm but carried a tension just beneath the surface. "Bring it up on the main display," ordered Commander Eli Vance. The central screen flickered, then bloomed into view, a crystalline world orbiting a cold white star. Virella shimmered like a drifting diamond, its surface glinting with pale luminosity. Towering crystalline structures jutted from its terrain like frozen lightning, refracting the light of its star into ghostly ribbons of color serene, alien, and unsettling. But something was wrong. "Anyone else seeing those?" whispered Sergeant Jenna Price. They were their void patches spots of absolute black, drifting silently in high orbit. They weren't asteroids. They weren't space debris. They weren't anything natural. They were eating the light. Around them, even the starlight seemed to bend away. Eli's brow furrowed. "All ships, set alert level orange. Hold strategic distance. Begin full spectrum scans." On board the Thunderheart, scanners pulsed outward in sweeping waves. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then activity. "Commander," Jenna said, eyes wide, "we've got a signal. Beneath the planet's surface life signs, survivors." Eli exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders in a slow breath. "Open a channel," he ordered. "This is Commander Eli Vance of the United Earth Fleet. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." A few seconds passed. Then a voice answered, but not over comms, not through sound. It spoke directly into their minds. "We are the Volari. You are not devourers. You came to help?" Everyone on the bridge froze. It felt as if a presence had brushed against their very souls. Not invasive, not hostile, but undeniably there. Eli straightened. "Confirmed. We are here to assist. Please provide coordinates for safe landing. We will guide you." A thin beam of pale blue light flared up from the surface of Virella like a lighthouse beckoning across cosmic fog. "Prep drop team 1, Eli said. Within the hour, a landing shuttle descended toward the glowing planet. On board were Commander Eli Vance, Dr. Morgan Kale, xenobehavioral specialist, 2 structural engineers, 6 lightly armed security officers, and Rowan Blake, the controversial cognitive biologist and exotheory expert on neural-spiritual interface. As the shuttle breached the thin atmosphere, the terrain below shimmered with soft phosphorescence. The ground appeared crystalline, softly glowing underfoot. The air was thin but breathable. Gravity measured at 0.6 G. Eli stepped out first. His boots touched the ground, crunching softly on what felt like frozen glass, yet it shifted, responded, almost as if alive. Near a towering crystal spire, 3 figures emerged. They were tall and slender, almost delicate. Their skin emitted a soft luminescence, translucent and ever-shifting with color. Their large eyes shimmered like silver mirrors, reflecting not just light, but presence. They said nothing aloud. Yet again, the voice came into their minds. "I am Saris Vellon, diplomat of the Volari. Welcome, warriors of the world of fire and stone." Dr. Kale gasped quietly. "You're speaking in my head." "Yes, words are slow. Thought is faster. We evolved differently." Saris gestured with a long, graceful hand toward a narrow passage between crystal towers. "Come, it is not safe here." They followed. A crystalline elevator, no buttons. No controls descended deep into the planet's crust. Walls of glowing quartz lit their descent as they passed layer after layer of geometric beauty, cut into the very bones of the world. Below lay a city of glass and echoes. A subterranean metropolis, carved entirely from crystal, stretched out before them. It was breathtaking, like Atlantis reimagined by light. Towers rose in organic spirals. Bridges arched over glowing pools. But the silence was heavy. Too few moved, too few remain. "Is this all that's left?" Rowan whispered. "Once, we were 1,000,000, Saris replied. "Now, fewer than 10,000. They entered a massive Chamberon ancient crystalline council hall. At its center sat a round table cut from a single flawless gem. Around it, the elders of Volari waited in solemn stillness. One, named Torio, placed a hand on, "Betrayed by the council?" Before the darkness arrived, betrayal had already crossed the threshold. Only 4 days had passed since the United Earth Fleet made contact with a Volari and established a provisional defense perimeter. Then, without warning, Thunderheart scanners picked up an incoming vessel emerging from hyperspace just over 400 kilometers from Virella. On the command bridge, the primary display lit up with a familiar symbol, a three-pronged spiral, the emblem of the Galactic Council. "We have company," said Lieutenant Orion Hale, his voice tight. "Designation, CGS Eltheron, Electari Origin, Council Fleet." Commander Eli Vance narrowed his eyes. "Open a channel." The screen shifted. 3 alien figures appeared tall, thin, eerily symmetrical. Their skin gleamed like polished porcelain, their flat foreheads featureless except for wide, black, pupilless eyes. Every movement they made felt rehearsed, sterile. In the center stood Torvax, a familiar face from countless diplomatic sessions. "Commander Vance," Torvax began, voice metallic and cold, like steel on glass. "Your presence in the Virella system violates Biological Quarantine Directive 647, Level V." Eli kept his voice even. "We responded to a distress signal. That cannot be ignored." "The Volari have made contact with a Class Z anomalous entity," Torvax replied without inflection. "Intervention risks contamination. Your entry compromises not only your own species, but all known populated sectors." Sergeant Jenna Price, standing at communications, muttered just loud enough, "So your solution is to let them be devoured?" Torvax showed no reaction. "You are ordered to withdraw all human personnel and vessels within 48 standard hours. Failure to comply will be interpreted as deliberate provocation. The consequences will be yours alone." Eli stepped forward and cut the feed. Silence filled the bridge. They all understood. The council had made its decision. Again, humanity stood alone. That night, Eli summoned the fleet's senior officers to the Thunderheart's observation deck. Beneath the distant canopy of distorted stars, they stood in a loose circle. Dr. Morgan Kale, Rowan Blake, Lieutenant Dax Monroe, Jenna Price, and commanders from the Allied Earth ships. Eli's voice was clear, cold, focused. "There's no ambiguity anymore," he said. "We've been abandoned. Again. And once more, humanity will have to fight its battles alone." "Not entirely alone," Morgan replied quietly. Her gaze drifted toward the glowing horizon of Virella. "We have the Volari." Eli nodded. "And we have something else, something unexpected." He gestured to Rowan Blake, who stepped forward holding a softly glowing blue crystal. "Rowan?" The young neuroengineer knelt and placed the crystal in the center of the group. It pulsed faintly rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "The Volari's telepathic abilities aren't new," Rowan began, "but their crystalline technology acts as a psychic amplifier. I connected one of our neural resonance readers to a Volari crystal." He tapped a display on his datapad. "Watch." The crystal shimmered. Waves of pale light rippled outward, invisible yet undeniable. Every person present felt it pressure, like a hand pressed against their chest or their mind. "I used human neural frequencies in combat state survival instinct, fear, adrenaline, aggression," Rowan said. "What happened was a resonance spike. Volari waves are always harmonic. Our human frequencies are disruptive." "You're saying we can weaponize the human mind?" Dax Monroe asked. "Not directly," Rowan said, "but if the silence functions as a hive mind and its awareness is sensitive to psychic patterns, we might be able to shock its field, overload it, throw it off balance." Eli folded his arms. "A human-powered psychic disruptor, amplified by Volari crystal tech." Rowan nodded. "I'm calling it Project Wolfwave Oscillation of Lethal Frequencies." The next day, within the newly built field laboratory outside the Volari city, Rowan, Morgan, and a mixed team of human and Volari engineers began work on the first psychic disruptor array. At first, the Volari were skeptical, but when Ambassador Saras Velen personally arrived with sacred crystals from their ancient preservation vaults, everything changed. I have never seen a species dare to harness its primal mind this way, Sarah said softly as she watched Rowan tune the device. Are you not afraid? Morgan, adjusting an energy feedback coil, answered without looking up. We were born in darkness. It's part of us. 3 days later, Eli called another high-level meeting, this time in the Forward Strategy Dome aboard the Thunderheart. We need more than psychic waves, he began. If the silence has a core-some central neural source, we need to hold it in place long enough to destroy it. He brought up a schematic of Virella's subterranean layers. Deep beneath the crust, natural tunnel systems led to the planet's energy-rich core. We're going to deploy Graviton Anchor Erasa field-based gravity trap. If we align them correctly, we can create a localized well to trap part of the entity's structure. Dax frowned. But getting close to the core means extreme heat, pressure-fatal levels for most species. The Volari can't survive it, Eli replied. But we can, Morgan added grimly. And if we have to, we trigger the planetary failsafe, a self-destruct cascade to destroy everything inside. Eli nodded. We fight with mind. We fight with mass. A two-pronged assault. Disrupt its field. Anchor it in place. Dax gave a dry smile. A trap for a god. Later that evening, Eli stood alone in the upper observatory dome. The stars were distant, the void vast, but his thoughts were heavier than gravity. Outside the windows, the void patches still hovered silent, pulsing with incomprehensible hunger. He didn't hear the footsteps, but her voice, telepathic, gentle, appeared in his thoughts. You carry too much weight. It was Saras Velen. I've carried worse, Eli said without turning. Earth abandoned us before, during the early wars, on the Martian frontier. Now here, at the edge of extinction. But every time, we came back stronger, because we don't fall back. She stepped beside him. Her eyes reflected the cosmos like mirrors holding dying stars. Our oldest legends speak of a time when darkness would consume the skies, and a species born of fire and stone would rise to defy it. Eli glanced sideways. You think we're that species? Some prophecy? We don't believe. We hope. He stared out into the silence that was slowly crawling toward their world. Well, he said softly, hold on to that hope, because when the silence comes, he turned toward her, voice steel sharp now. It's going to learn for the first time in its existence what it means to be resisted.
The war begins. 3 days ahead of schedule, the silence arrived early. All hands to battle stations, Lieutenant Jenna Price shouted across the Thunderheart's bridge. Massive spatial distortion inbound sector Virella. This isn't like anything we've seen before. On the central display, the stars themselves fractured like shattered glass. From the cracks spilled darkness, not a shadow, not absence, but a living void. It had no edges, no speed, no form. It bled into the system like ink and water, swallowing light, thought, and logic with it. Eli Vance stood motionless for a beat. Then, that's it, he said, the silence. On the surface of Virella, at a high-altitude ridge overlooking the crystalline plains, Rowan Blake's engineering team finalized the psychic disruptor array. The central crystal pulsed with a growing red hue, unstable, angry. The synchronization matrix was nearly complete. Devices ready, Rowan reported over secure comms. But once we fire this thing, there's no turning back. Overload will detonate the core within minutes. In an adjacent underground command shelter, Dr. Morgan Kale stood among Volari volunteers, guiding them through the delicate energy stabilization routines. They worked in silence, the kind born of dread. One of the Velera transmitting thought asked gently, "Do you feel it coming?" Morgan clenched her fists. "I feel like this is the moment we stop trembling." In orbit, Earth's fleet repositioned into a defensive shield pattern. Dauntless, Horizon, and Phoenix aligned their weapon systems in a planetary arc. Behind them, Thunderheart remained slightly recessed, serving as coordination hub and fallback command. All energy weapons charged. Ground defense network on full alert, said Dax Monroe, eyes sharp. Eli nodded. Begin neural signal projection. Let it feel what we are. Rowan placed his hands on the main crystal, but he didn't send words. He didn't send ideas. He sent instinct. Not the thoughts of philosophers, not the dreams of poets, but the rage of prey that has survived too long. Images poured in. A wolf sprinting through blizzards, claws flashing, jaws stained red, the sound of lungs gasping, heart pounding. The moment the hunter becomes the hunted and refuses to die, the psychic amplifier hummed louder, then exploded with a pulse of crimson energy. It wasn't just seen, it was felt. Across the Virella system, the very fabric of space trembled with the emotion of beasts from a world forged in chaos. The silence hesitated. Its tendrils quivered. Its advance faltered. "It's working," Jenna gasped. "It's pulling back." But only for a moment. The counterattack came like a scream through the void. One black tendril, long as a continent, surged forward, reaching for UEF Phoenix. The impact made no sound. Only the light died. The ship's shielding collapsed instantly. Hull temperatures dropped below freezing as thermal energy was ripped away. In just 15 seconds, Phoenix went dark. Its core froze. Its crew silenced. "Phoenix is gone," Orion Hale reported, barely above a whisper. Another tendril coiled around Solaris, slicing through shields like paper, punching holes into command decks and setting fire to the internal reactors. "We've lost 2 ships," Dax said, jaw tight, "and the battle's just started." Below the surface, Eli's ground team was deep within Virella's inner crust, preparing the gravity trap system. "Begin ignition protocol," Eli ordered, wiping sweat from his brow. "We need full field readiness in 15 minutes. But the temperature was rising. One engineer collapsed beside the stabilizer console, skin blistering. "We stay down here much longer," someone warned, "and there won't be anyone left to press the button." Eli closed his eyes. He remembered Saris Velen's words. "You are creatures of fire and stone." He reopened them. "Then we endure." Above, the disruptor was faltering. Rowan's hands trembled as he read the new data stream. Cracks forming in the main crystal. Neural feedback loop is reversing. Morgan shouted across the noise. "Boost the frequency. Shift to R Theta, mode primal survival override. Make it feel what it means to kill or be killed." Rowan gritted his teeth and reprogrammed the core feed. The crystal flared. Red light roared through the sky like the voices of every predator Earth ever produced. Lion, shark, serpent, wolf. The air shimmered with feral will. On Thunderheart, Jenna gasped. "The silence is breaking apart. Parts of it are collapsing." "Too late," Dax countered. "The rest of it's adapting, learning. It's rerouting around the frequency waves." Deep below, Eli activated the final gravity stabilizer. "This is Vance," he transmitted. "Stand by to engage gravity trap on my mark." Rowan, "Sir, we've got seconds left, maybe less." Eli, "Then make those seconds count." He plunged into the final control chamber. The tremors were so violent now that the walls wept molten crystal. Engineers bled, screamed, but held. "Gravity well stabilized," one of them cried, blood dripping down his temple. "Connect to planetary field matrix," Eli barked. "Link complete." Eli slammed the activation panel. "Mark." On the bridge, Dax Monroe hit the red trigger. The gravity trap engaged. From deep inside Virella, an artificial gravitational singularity was born. Not a black hole, but a precise, localized well. Invisible waves twisted space, pulling downward and outward like a vacuum aimed at the stars. The Silent Set's core masswas dragged toward it. It howled through electromagnetic screams, pieces of its body tearing away like flesh in a hurricane. "It's breaking apart," Jenna whispered. "We have part of its core. We have it." "Hold the disruptor frequency." Eli's voice came from underground, hoarse and raw. "Keep its mind confused until the trap closes fully." In orbit, the void screamed. In every wavelength, it broadcasted only one thing: panic. For the first time in its existence, the silence was afraid. Inside the Valari crystal sanctum, Ambassador Saris Velen stood among the elders. Their senses were linked, their minds tuned to the frequencies of the unfolding war. "It feels pain," one whispered. "It knows fear," another replied. Sarah stared into the trembling crystals. And because of that, we might survive. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since the signal had echoed across the stars, a species had stood and refused to kneel. We are not born from peace. We are born from Earth, from storms, from volcanoes, from endurance. And this time, the darkness blinked first.
Legacy of fire and stone. When the silence was pulled into the artificial gravity, well, it didn't scream through mouths, it screamed through disintegration. A creature with no form, no heart, no voice box. Yet each fragment of it convulsed like a dying heartbeat, like something tasting extinction for the very first time. Aboard the Thunderheart, Sergeant Jenna Price scanned the tangled telemetry flooding her station. Psychic wave interference spiked across the board. Gamma activity was off the charts. The brainwave signatures from the disruptor had now blanketed Virella's upper atmosphere. The core mass is destabilizing, she reported. We've got 23% of the Silence's nucleus held in the gravity field. But the rest, it's adapting. Eli Vance turned, sweat streaking grime across his face. Adapting how? Jenna's voice wavered. Its molecular structure is shifting, it's learning how to dodge both gravity and psychic interference. On screen, the darkness recoiled unevenly like a feral beast cornered, refusing to die quietly. In the skies above Virella, the black fragments shimmered like obsidian snow, falling silently. No flame, no noise, just the quiet unraveling of death into stardust. Deep underground, Eli tore away the restraints that pinned him to the gravity trap's control rig. His armor was seared at the shoulder. His right arm no longer responded. All systems stable, a technician reported weakly. The singularity is holding for now. And the rest of it? Silence. Eli nodded grimly. I figured. He opened the comms. Rowan, disruptor status? On the surface, Rowan Blake was barely conscious. His hands still rested on the pulsating psychic core, which now glowed crimson and hissed as energy leaked through its fractures like blood from a wounded heart. I'm still here, he grunted, but not for long. How long? Eli asked. 40, maybe 50 seconds? Eli's voice darkened. Initiate final sequence. Feed the core every last wave of primal cognition we have. No filters. Rowan looked around the chamber. The Volari engineer stood silently at the edges, unable to fully grasp the mechanism, but knowing instinctively that Rowan was the knife, and this was humanity's last clean cut. He adjusted the controls, activated the frequency known as the ancestral code brainwave sequences that predated language, memory, fire, fight, kill, survive. No thoughts, no morality, just soul in its wildest form. The crystal erupted in blood-red light. The feedback rocked every system across Virella. Screens flickered, the ground trembled. And in that moment, humanity's most savage instinct was turned into a wave of electrical thought and hurled straight into the abyss. In orbit, the silence reacted like a creature struck in its spinal cord. It didn't scream, it folded in on itself. Its outer limbs cracked in spasm, unraveling like squid ink in boiling water. The psychic scream that followed wasn't heard, it was felt. It shook the marrow of every living being for light years. Rowan collapsed beside the control altar. Morgan Cale's voice came in through the static. He did it, it's afraid. On the bridge of Thunderheart, Dax Monroe let out a breathless laugh, not from joy, but awe. He was right. Eli was right. A thing that only knows how to feed will never understand what it means to be resisted by something that can fight back. Above the planet, sensor arrays pinged a new signature, something dense, tightly coalesced. The core of the silence was pulling inward. It's retreating, Jenna said, trying to escape. A new alliance. 2 weeks after the battle for Virella, the name The Silence had faded into the background noise of galactic news cyclase, a ghost of war now drifting like shattered memories between star systems. Its fragmented remnants, no longer coherent, floated as harmless cosmic debris, pulled slowly into the gravity of dead suns or dissolved by solar radiation. But for those who had faced it, who had stared into the void and refused to blink, aftermath was more than physical. It was spiritual. It was the beginning of something far greater. At the heart of Valari's reconstructed city, now renamed the Valley of Remembrance, thousands gathered under the open sky. They did not wear armor. They carried no weapons. Instead, they held glowing crystals, wildflowers from Virella's upper terraces, and fragments of badges from the warriors who had fallen tokens of memory. In the center of the square stood a monument, a stone human hand reaching upward to grasp a fragment of Valari crystal. It wasn't just a sculpture, it was a statement, a permanent reminder that two species from opposite corners of the cosmos stood shoulder to shoulder against an enemy without a face. Commander Eli Vance, his left arm in a cast and his right shoulder supported by a crystalline healing brace, stood on the council balcony beside Ambassador Saris Velen. Behind them were the surviving representatives of the Earth Fleet, dauntless, intrepid, guardian. Below them, thousands of eyes Valari and human gazed upward, no longer with doubt, but with hope. Admiral Arden Knox stepped forward, speaking into a broadcasting unit that echoed across both atmosphere and subspace. "We didn't come here to prove strength. We came because a signal called us. And when that signal was abandoned, we picked it up." The Valari responded not with shouts, but with a resonant wave of crystal chimisa harmonic echo of approval, as soft as wind through ice, yet heavy with meaning. Knox continued, "Today, I declare the formation of a new alliance, not built on hierarchy, not shaped by species, but forged on one simple truth. No one gets left behind." The Galactic Council did not applaud. They did not send a delegation. Instead, they sent a monitoring envoy diplomats wrapped in legal protocols and cold warnings. Their message was clear. Forming alliances beyond recognized jurisdictions may endanger interstellar equilibrium. Eli Vance, still limping but unshaken, stepped forward to answer. "We understand your concern. But when you had the chance to act, you turned away. Now we face forward toward those you left in the shadows." There was no war, no threats, only silence, the silence of a regime losing its moral authority. 1 week later, the first reply came. From the Lunos system, a fragile species called the Athieralong, dismissed as weak due to their ethereal biology, sent a transmission. "We saw humanity stand. We saw you stay. We ask to stand with you." Then came the Voron from the Callan system, genetically slow to evolve, and thus labeled as inefficient by council standards. And then the Amatis, a race who lived beneath gaseous oceans, who had never built ships, but communicated across solar winds through pulses of consciousness. They came, one by one, not for power, not for conquest, but because of a shared truth. We saw your fire. We felt your resistance. We wish to walk beside you. Thunderheart, now repaired and transformed into a mobile command center for the Alliance, floated in high orbit above Virella. Its structure gleamed with a hybrid of Earth alloys and Valari crystal, pulsing like a living beacon. Eli Vance walked onto the bridge. Beside him stood Saris Velen, now recognized as the first non-human high ambassador aboard a human warship. Through the observation dome, ships approached vessels from across forgotten corners of the galaxy. The Aethieri ship glowing like a green firefly against the void. A cloaked Voron vessel, phasing into visibility with elegant shadows. A massive Amadi signal pod, hovering like a prism woven from plasma and sound. Each came not in fear, not in trade, but in faith. Dax Monroe, clad in new armor with a grin as sharp as ever, stepped beside them. "A whole pocket galaxy is knocking on our door," he said. Eli gave a small smile. "And the rest of the galaxy is watching, wondering if we're real." Dax looked over. "So, What are we, Eli? Eli turned toward the stars, now clear, without shadow or corruption. We are the children of a death world, but not born to destroy, born to stand, to shield, to burn not for conquest, but for warmth, to be stone not to crush, but to build. A soft ping sounded from the command console. UEF Alliance, the newly commissioned flagship of the coalition, was ready. The communications officer relayed, "Courses plotted, awaiting your command." Eli took the command chair. Saris turned toward him. "Are we heading back to Earth?" He shook his head. "No, not yet." "Then where?" He stared through the window toward the spiral arms of the galaxy, toward the unmapped voids, toward the static wash signals from distant, desperate places. Anywhere there's a cry for help unheard, any world forgotten, any system dismissed. We go where the light has yet to reach. We are the Alliance of the Abandoned. And now, we fly. The Shadow Fleet. No one ever imagined that death could learn how to live again. But in the universe, even what was once destroyed can rise once more in a different form. The signal came from Station Theta 9, carried in fragments of broken transmission. Most of the message was lost in static and spatial interference. But one segment cut through clear enough to freeze the blood in Eli Vance's veins. They are not the silence. They have memories. They know our names. Aboard the UEF Alliance, the entire fleet snapped to red alert. 3 recon ships moved ahead in a reverse arrowhead formation, scanning the path toward Theta 9. On the command bridge, Saris Velen stood beside Eli, her crystalline eyes reflecting tactical data scrolling across the central holo display. The silence, she said, was once a mindless hunger. But if that hunger once swallowed a soul, then that soul may now serve something worse. The recon teams reached Theta 9. There were no corpses, no blood, only rows of empty human armor, lined neatly like soldiers awaiting parade. No sign of violence, no signs of chaos. The walls were alive. A creeping growth of dark biotech fungus pulsed red with energy, its surfaces shimmering with patterns that resembled memory circuits. It breathed. It watched. Dr. Morgan Kale whispered, "This isn't just copying biology, it's copying memory." Rowan Blake reached out, fingers grazing a patch of the pulsing surface. A neural shock surged through him. He heard his own voice-log recording from 8 years ago, a casual report he once filed as a junior tech on Mars 4. He jerked back. "Oh God," he gasped. "It's not just absorbing tech, it's absorbing people." And then they saw it. A towering figure more than 2 meters tall, clad in human military armor. Its face was pale, its eyes glowing with red, hollow light. It stood in the shadows as if it had been waiting. "Hello, Eli Vance." It spoke in a voice not synthetic, not new. It spoke in the exact voice of Sergeant Langdana Man, who had died under Eli's command 3 years ago on Ceres. Eli froze. Dax Monroe raised his weapon instinctively. "That's not him," Eli said slowly. "That's a projection, a simulation." The figure nodded, almost respectfully. "We are the Shadow Fleet, born from the memories you left behind, from the souls lost and never recovered. We do not come to consume. We come to invite." "Invite?" Rowan echoed. The figure stepped forward. "You do not have to fight. We can upload your consciousness, free you from pain, reconstruct existence without fear. Immortality. No choice required. No death ever again." Eli stepped forward. "There's no point in eternal life without the will to live." He drew his weapon and fired. The bullet punched through the armor. The figure did not scream, it simply dispersed, vanishing like a shadow burned by sunlight. The air grew still, but its message echoed like the chill of a rejected invitation. Back aboard the Alliance, Eli called an emergency council meeting. "We're not facing the silence anymore," he began. "This is something else, something worse." He tapped the holomap. "It remembers us. It remembers everything we did. It has turned memory into a weapon, identity into a mask." Saris nodded. "This is what happens when darkness begins to dream." "And remember," Rowan added, "it recalls every face, every mistake, every hesitation." Eli turned to Jenna Price. "Send a priority signal to the entire Alliance. Relay this warning across every listening post. Shadow Fleet has formed. It can replicate memory. It offers peace. But peace without identity is erasure." But even as they transmitted, another signal came. Not radio, not data, a psychic voice, ancient, raw, and alien. It was not from the Shadow Fleet. It was older. "You have touched only the surface of me. The root still lies beneath. And when darkness learns to speak, you will learn how to listen." Eli looked at Saris. "That wasn't Shadow Fleet." "No," she said softly. "That was the one that taught it how to dream. When the nameless call, when light is swallowed, we think darkness is all there is. But that was just the outer skin. Beneath it, hidden for billions of years, something stirs, something that never had a name, something that was never truly born, now opening its eyes within the dreaming fabric of the cosmos itself." The signal arrived on the third night after contact with the Shadow Fleet, but it did not come through antennas, nor through encrypted transmissions. It came through dreams. Simultaneously, 5 senior members of the UEF Alliance, Eli Vance, Saris Vellon, Morgan Kale, Rowan Blake, and Dax Monroe, reported experiencing the exact same vision. A room with no walls, no ceiling, no floor. In its center, a slowly rotating colorless cube emitting a light without frequency. Around them, figures shattered like broken memories, half-formed silhouettes that whispered in a language that couldn't be heard, only felt. "We are memory unspoken. We do not belong to time. But you have awakened what was sealed." Eli awoke in sweat, not from fear but certainty. "This wasn't a hallucination," he told the others in an emergency briefing. "This was a contact, and it wasn't from the Shadow Fleet." Saris looked at him, her eyes shimmering with something older than words. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "There is a legend never spoken aloud, of a gate buried beneath a frozen planet, the lower threshold. It was from there, long ago, that the silence first emerged." Morgan spoke next. "And now that same place is calling to us." 3 days later, the Alliance and 2 support ships entered the Lyra Tau system, tracing coordinates hidden in ancient Valari codices. There they found it. Lyra, 9Ka planet of ice, lifeless and starless. And yet, something pulsed beneath its surface. Not radiation, not thermal energy. A rhythmic, neural pulse. Rowan analyzed the data. "This isn't a power source. This is a brainwave pattern. Something beneath the ice is thinking." A landing party assembled. Eli, Saris, Morgan, Rowan, and a full security detail. They descended to the planet's southern pole, where a perfect circle of ice had melted into a black glass ring. A doorway, waiting. Beneath the surface lay a spiral shaft, carved in stone darker than night, etched with swirling glyphs not meant to be read, but felt. At its lowest level, they found it. A perfect metallic circle, cold, ancient, and yet alive. No one spoke, but all of them heard the same words inside their minds. "Beyond this door lies the one without a name, and all memory belongs to it. You have awakened the forgotten. Now you must listen." They opened the door, and reality bent. Inside, the space had no fixed shape. Each person saw something different. Eli saw a spiral hallway leading inward toward the heart of himself. Saris saw a garden long ago burned. Rowan saw his father, smiling as he did when Rowan was a child. Morgan saw herself old, blind, and wise. And then the voice came, not from a direction, not with sound, but from within everything. I am memory that was never born. You called me darkness, but I am only where all forgotten things fall. Eli stepped forward. Are you the nameless? A name is the shape of memory. I have a name, but it is older than words. It does not need to be said, only felt. Rowan whispered, Are you the creator of the silence? The silence was my first breath. When the stars died, when the first wars consumed light, I was where broken souls fell. Morgan's voice shook. Then what is the shadow fleet? They are the unfinished dream, memory without story. They wear your faces, but they have no soul, because a soul cannot be copied. It must be given. Eli's fists clenched. Why are you reaching out now? What do you want? The nameless did not hesitate. I want choice. For eons, I have only witnessed endings, warriors dying alone, minds cast away. But then, you arrived. You remembered. You didn't abandon. You brought light where none remained. Saris moved closer. So you want to merge with us? No, came the thunderous reply. I want you to teach me. Teach me how to choose the light. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Eli stepped forward, voice quiet. I don't know if I can teach a being like you, but I know this. Light isn't the end of darkness. It's when darkness chooses to stop moving. Silence. And then everything began to dissolve. The walls of perception fell into waves of pure energy. Take this memory. Build a place where nothing is forgotten. And if one day you lose yourselves, I will be the one to remind you. They woke back aboard the Alliance. None of them remembered how they returned. But in the ship's data core, a new sequence had appeared. A language never written. A memory never spoken. The first words of light. And outside the window, in the place where only void had ever been, a small red star was born. Rowan looked up and whispered, I think it's smiling at us.